Do you ever get that feeling? The one where the air gets heavy and the room feels smaller? We aren't just looking into the dark tonight, we're inviting it in. Welcome to Horror Stories. Let's see what's hiding in the corners.
The worst part about being home alone is realizing you're not alone. The night dragged on slower than usual. The house felt too quiet, like even the walls were holding their breath. My dad had left for work hours ago, promising he'd be back late. I didn't mind being alone. Actually, I preferred it. No noise, no distractions. Just me, my phone, and the occasional hum of the refrigerator. But that night felt different. Every little sound seemed louder. The ticking clock echoed through the hallway, and the wind brushed against the windows like fingers trying to get in. I stayed up longer than I should have, scrolling through my phone, trying to ignore the uneasy feeling building inside me. Eventually, I turned off the lights and lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, waiting for sleep to come. That's when I heard it, a soft creak. The front door. My heart skipped for a second, then relief washed over it. "Dad?" I called out, my voice slightly shaky. There was no answer, but I got up anyway and walked into the hallway. The house felt colder now. As I reached the living room, I saw him standing near the door. "Hey," I said softly, stepping closer. He didn't respond. He just stood there, completely still. Something felt off, but I ignored it and wrapped my arms around him. His body felt stiff, unnaturally stiff, cold, like he had been standing outside for hours. I pulled back slightly and looked at his face. He was pale, and his eyes didn't seem to focus on me. "You okay?" I whispered. He didn't answer. After a few seconds, he slowly turned around and walked toward his room without saying a word. His steps were slow and heavy, almost unnatural. I stood there for a moment, confused, before shaking it off and heading back to my room. I sat on my bed, trying to calm myself down, when my phone suddenly buzzed. It was a message from Dad. I frowned and opened it, my heart starting to race. "Working late tonight, sweetie. I'll be home in a few hours." I read the message again. Misunderstood. I didn't realize to my bed. I stretched into darkness. A teenage girl comes home from school. Her parents were at work, and her siblings had soccer practice. She was alone in her house, and she figured it'll be cool. She goes up to her bedroom and sees a note on her bed. She picks it up, and it reads, "There is someone in the house." She crumples the note and says, "Very funny, guys. What happened? You missed soccer practice?" No one answers. She yells, "Hey, if I find you two here in my room again, you're dead." So she goes to the kitchen to get a snack. She opens the refrigerator and discovers another note. It says, "Your little sister and brother are at soccer practice." She drops the note and she says, "Hey guys, this is not funny anymore. Stop it." She goes to the front door and turns the knob. It's stuck. "Hey, what the?" she yells, and she tries opening the door by slamming into it and kicking it. The door is locked shut. She looks on the floor and notices another note. It says, "You're stuck. You ain't going nowhere." She screams and grabs her cell phone from her pocket. The battery is dead. So she runs to the living room to get to the home phone. But the home phone is gone. There's another note. It says, "No cops, no phone, no way out." So she runs to the back door, trembling with fear. The back door is also locked shut. She screams. She notices another note. She reads it and says, "Look up." So she looks up and finds her dead cat speared through the ceiling. Cat speared through the ceiling with a kitchen knife. She screams in terror and runs to the nearest window. There's a note on the other side, and it says, "I dare you to go outside." Terrified, she runs to the kitchen for a knife to defend herself. Nothing. The knives were all gone. Only a note that says, "I don't think so." She runs to her bedroom and locks the door. She checks the closet and under the bed. Nobody there. She looks in her drawer for her cell phone charger, but instead finds a note that says, "I said no effing phones." Then her TV turns on by itself. It's loud and static. She walks towards the TV and turns it off. She finds another note. It says, "I have the remote." She goes in panic. She yells and screams, "Help! Help! Somebody help me!" 10 minutes later, police arrive breaking into her front door. The cop searches in and out of the house but finds no one. As the detective were interviewing her, they notice a note attached to her back. It reads, "I was this close, but I saw the..."
When I moved into the small suburban neighborhood, everything seemed perfect. Quiet streets, identical houses, and friendly people who waved as they walked their dogs. But there was one house at the end of the block that didn't fit. It wasn't broken or abandoned. It was simply always awake. Every single night, the lights in that house stayed on. At first, I didn't think much about it. Some people work night shifts, I told myself. But after a few days, I noticed something strange. The same silhouette stood near the window every night. It didn't move much, just stood there, as if watching the street. Even at 2 a.m., when the neighborhood was completely silent, the figure remained. I started feeling uncomfortable walking past that house, especially when I felt like someone was staring directly at me. One evening, I asked my next-door neighbor about it. She paused for a second before replying, "Oh, you mean the man in number 14? He's different." When I asked what she meant, she just shook her head and said, "People say he never sleeps." Then she quickly changed the subject. That response only made me more curious and nervous. Over the next few nights,
I began paying closer attention. The man never turned off his lights. Sometimes I'd wake up at 3 a.m. and see him standing in the same spot. One night, I even saw him outside, slowly pacing his porch, looking up at the sky. His movements were stiff, almost unnatural, like someone pretending to be human. Then came the night that changed everything. I couldn't sleep, so I sat by my window around 1 a.m. Suddenly, I saw the man staring directly at my house. He wasn't just looking, he was smiling. A wide, unnatural smile that didn't reach his eyes. My heart started racing. I stepped away from the window, trying to calm down. But when I looked again, he was gone. A few minutes later, I heard something outside my door. A slow, deliberate knock. 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 I froze. No one visits at that hour. The knocking stopped, and I heard faint footsteps moving away. I didn't open the door. I couldn't. My hands were shaking too much. The next morning, I checked my porch. There was nothing there, except a small piece of paper. It read, "You should try staying awake tonight." That night, I didn't sleep. I kept my lights on, staring at the clock as hours passed. Around 4 a.m., I accidentally dozed off for just a few seconds. When I woke up, my room felt colder, and then I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Across the street, the neighbor's house was completely dark for the first time since I moved in. In my window, reflected behind me, I saw a figure standing still, watching me, wide awake.
Ethan Cole had always preferred being alone.
At 17, he had no interest in parties, friends, or even stepping outside unless absolutely necessary. While other kids his age were out living their lives, Ethan stayed locked inside his room, surrounded by screens. His world was simple: video games, his phone, and silence. He liked it that way. No distractions, no expectations, no people. 2 weeks before everything happened, Ethan and his parents had moved into a new apartment complex just outside Portland, Oregon. It was a quiet place, surrounded by tall trees and narrow streets that seemed almost empty at night. During the day, it felt peaceful, but as evening fell, the silence became heavier, almost uncomfortable. Ethan didn't pay much attention to it at first. As long as he had internet and his own space, nothing else mattered to him. Still, there was something about the apartment that felt off. It wasn't something he could explain, just a strange feeling that crept in when everything went quiet. It didn't feel like normal silence. It felt like something was always there, just out of sight, waiting. One Saturday evening, Ethan's parents were invited to a small party in another unit down the hall. They tried convincing him to come along, saying it would be good for him to socialize a little, but Ethan refused without even looking up from his phone.
He barely acknowledged them as they left. A few moments later, the front door closed, and the apartment fell completely silent. For the first hour, everything felt normal. Ethan sat in his chair, fully focused on his game, the sounds in his headset filling the room. It blocked out everything else, keeping him comfortable in his usual routine. But suddenly, without warning, the Wi-Fi cut out. The game froze, and the noise disappeared instantly, leaving behind a deep, unsettling quiet. Ethan pulled off his headset, annoyed at first, but then he noticed something strange. The silence felt different now. It was heavier, almost suffocating. That's when he heard it, a faint knocking sound. It wasn't coming from the front door. It was coming from somewhere inside the apartment. He froze, listening carefully. The sound came again, clearer this time. A slow, deliberate tapping, like someone knocking softly on wood. Ethan stood up, his heart beating a little faster as he stepped out of his room and into the hallway. The light above flickered slightly, casting uneven shadows along the walls. "Mom," he called out instinctively, even though he knew no one was home. There was no response. The knocking stopped, and the silence returned, but it felt worse now, as if something had noticed him listening. Trying to calm himself, Ethan checked the front door. It was locked. He walked through the kitchen, then the bathroom. Nothing out of place. Everything seemed normal, yet the uneasy feeling wouldn't go away. He told himself it was probably just the pipes or something settling in the building. As he turned back toward his room, he suddenly stopped. His bedroom door was closed. He was sure he had left it open. A cold feeling ran through his body as he slowly stepped closer. The air felt colder on the hallway now, almost unnaturally so. He reached out and touched the doorknob. It was warm. Ethan immediately pulled his hand back, his breath catching in his throat. He hadn't been inside his room since the Wi-Fi went out. There was no reason for the handle to feel warm. Before he could think further, the knocking sound came again. This time it was unmistakable. It was coming from inside his room. Panic hit him instantly. He stepped back, shaking his head as if trying to convince himself it wasn't real. He grabbed his phone, but there was no signal. The hallway light flickered again, then suddenly went out, plunging everything into darkness. In that darkness, Ethan heard something else. Not knocking anymore. Breathing. Slow, heavy breathing, coming from just behind the door. Then, without warning, the handle began to move. Slowly, the door creaked open, just a few inches.
The darkness inside his room seemed deeper than it should have been, like it was swallowing the light around it. Ethan couldn't move. His body felt frozen in place as he stared at the small gap in the door. And then he heard it. A voice. Soft, almost gentle, whispering from inside the room. "Why did you leave me alone?" That was enough. Ethan turned and ran. He didn't look back as he sprinted down the hallway, out of the apartment, and toward the elevator. His heart was pounding as he repeatedly pressed the button, desperate for the doors to open.
But just before they closed, he heard something behind him. Footsteps, slow and dragging, moving closer with each second. Later that night, when his parents returned, they found the apartment door wide open. The lights were off, and Ethan's phone was lying on the floor, still recording. In the background of the recording, there was a voice. It sounded like Ethan, softly whispering from inside his room, even though he was never found.